Thanks for coming, especially for this weather. It's a little hectic out there, but I hope we are all kind of happy and cozy in here. There's drinks are served on the corner. Also thanks Harry for the introduction, and then Asian Archive for this opportunity for me to share out my work. I have a lot of slides, as I said, so let's just get right into it. Satan's lawyer. So first, to clarify, I am not Satan's lawyer. Like, that's not what this means. So this talk does not have any celestial or traditional meanings behind the talk. None of this is really anything to do with what Satan's and what lawyer is. And also, so please don't call me that in the visual museum industry. Quite scary. And also, I am not a linguistic, and I'm also not a anthropologist. So I don't really have any in-depth research on languages or translation, and then I don't know anything about law either. So again, not really the translation of thinking. So if you have come to the wrong talk, this is the time to leave, grab a drink. But I'm a designer, so this is what I do. Here is a quick overview of some selected projects from the past 14 years. So there's the work we do in the studio, workshop, and then projects encompassing all contemporary graphic media type, from print to books to identity to environmental signage and exhibition, and also like digital interactive projects. So we mainly work in the art and cultural area. So even I say, like, I don't know that much about translation, I don't know that much about negotiation, even that's what the title of the talk is. What I try to say is, I will argue though, design, it's kind of it's a process of a translation. So in terms of that, like, I think it's in a basic term that it transmit or it help to frame the message from the sender to the receivers. So you have something to say, I'll help you to say it. So like, every morning you open up your phone, no matter which part of the world you are in, no matter what kind of 5G war is on now, you see this like image that designer actually deliberately put in. Maybe it's trying to translate or trying to communicate a vision, maybe with a little bit kind of nationalism, like depends on what's the center of the globe. And sometimes, like, designer also do a kind of translation for the content. So this is a project we did, a book, which is right here for Guggenheim. That's here through typography, we add meaning on top of the meaning. So we format the title, the headline, the titles, the body text, the footnotes in a very different way, so you know how to read them and know what those meanings means. So we create structure on top of meanings. And another example from the book, it's basically a textbook, a reader, a short novel, a specially commissioned short novel that insert in the art catalog. And so by giving this kind of we built this product, this structure that kind of guides you through that what is things to read and what things to look at it or to just browse it through. To me, that's some sort of a part of a design process. And then here too, by assign these different content with the different styles. Here you can clearly see there's two different languages, and one language is actually translated for another. So, what is Satan's lawyer?
What are you? Oh, I have so many names. Satan. Call me Dad.
Marge, may I play devil's advocate for a moment?
Sure, go ahead.
Come on, get in there. Go! Stupid game. Now, what were we talking about?
So Gary played this lawyer that has been recruited by a New York law firm that owned by Al Pacino, and then apparently turned out Al Pacino is Satan, or is devil, or is whatever that is, and then it's have all this kind of like mysterious kind of secret stories. And so I wish I could found a clip that is dubbed in Chinese, but it wasn't. So it does have a Chinese subtitle. So the next thing is what does it mean when people say, "Let me play devil's advocate" in a conversation? And so here you actually will see Simpsons play devil's advocate. It's just a silly clip that he actually stands up and plays devil's advocate as a video game. But you know what that means when we say that is a person from the Merriam-Webster is a person who champions the less accepted cause for the sake of argument. So that's what devil's advocate means, and then usually nowadays we look at other resources online. So apparently Wikipedia is a very kind of reliable resources apparently. So like it's a formal official position in Catholic Church that is someone is supposed to argue in terms of to like testify what the canonization, the argument in the church is right. So usually with this, after this validation, we go with the Urban Dictionary. That's what I usually do. Is that what they really mean? So you look at Urban Dictionary, it means the same thing. It says, especially the top ranking definition is says similar to what we think. I like the third ranking meaning is just, devil's advocate means to argue just for the fuck of it. So someone just need to like to argue or play the different side of the in the position or the group consensus. So Satan's for your devil's advocate. Going back to the movie, so here you're seeing 3 movie posters or DVD covers from 3 different parts of China. And so it started the first when the movie screened in '97. It first screened in Hong Kong, and then they and then China and Taiwan, and I think. From my research, it never screened in China until later days and then being issued as a DVD. But in Taiwan and China, they both use translate devil's advocate into a more kind of direct translation cause it translates to devil's spokesperson. So it's speaking for the devil and kind of trying to portray the movie and then the plot and narrative. In Hong Kong, they usually do a little bit more literary translation, so you went with something more kind of interpretative in a way. So it's like a chasing spirit deal. A deal that is chasing spirit, so it seems quite scary and quite kind of marvelous and all that. This is 3 different translations, 3 different visual representation for the same movie on one title, and then the translation is not only through Chinese to English now. It's from English to Chinese, but also to Chinese who and Chinese where, because these differences that in this 3 part of the Greater China. It's based on the nuances, the cultural nuances or historical nuances that each region or each area of China will be able to, the public will be able to subscribe to understand. So let's play devil's advocate and go into my work. So again, I'm a designer. This is the first project I did that related to translation. So it's a group show called Straight Alchemist, curated by Kate Fowles and Wkshps Center. This is 2008. So at that time, it's a book for the exhibition. So at that time, it is a very Western design, but what I really wanted to do is just make 2 languages look equal. Because there's a lot of different ways to do this, but I would like to see the Chinese and English in the same size and the same baseline. They're using similar typeface that look similar to each other. So even with all this kind of there's total of 6 artists, and then each artist submit their inspirational images and their final work. So also we designed the books grouping with the artists and not intersect with the inspiration images and then the final artwork. And we try to kind of, on this very kind of almost, it's very complex layout, but we try to balance the languages. Stone and Ruby at that time wasn't as famous today. He submitted something that it's a research, it's a long form text. The research that is typewriter, it's set in a kind of typewriter font. So we're trying to kind of typeset that in both Chinese and English in an equal way. So like we don't kind of favor one language over another. So this is Kate's essay, even to the checklist. You can see the Chinese English are being treated equally. So it's an intuitive decision because I started in the United States, and these are the influences. The Swiss graphic design treated 2 languages, 3 different languages in exactly the same way. They basically say the same thing 3 times. Sometimes, the French term and English term might be the same. They just do it repeatedly. So it's this kind of flattened hierarchy between languages or between the content that have been translated. But also during that time, that something we were interested in studio, Dutch design, here showing Karl Martin's design for OAS, architecture magazine, that it just have a Dutch and English side by side. We can go to more kind of complex setting, 3 column with the image on the column, or this kind of horizontal setting, top is the Dutch, bottom is the English. We go into like more kind of complex mix of like images and plans and all that. So sometimes it's being set side by side, vertically, horizontally, doesn't matter, but it try to kind of present or showing or translate the languages equally. So that's very different than what I have seen, or like most of a kind of mainstream design in Asia or the other side of the world, that like interested in images that it says Bank of China bracket Hong Kong, and like it's a 2 language usually be treated differently or with a different expression. Not like Chinese character, even you don't read Chinese, you see that's kind of like a calligraphy gesture, with the English being the classic serif. So like that is something like I try to avoid, and then in my early, the couple projects I'm showing now is from my kind of earlier days. So another book for a group show for a 12 artists that mainly work on time-based media called time lapse. So the whole book and the whole exhibition is about time. So like the design of the book has a lot of kind of additional concept onto it. So basically the essay is on coated paper, the plate is on coated paper, but the plate which have the artwork is trimmed shorter, so you can actually flip to those plates quickly. So you have this kind of different reading speeds, and then the page number is being supersized. Here it's kind of implied it's a clock, so like it's counting through the book. And then also there's one curatorial essay being stretched throughout the book. So and in some page you have like few lines, and in some page you just have one line. So it's kind of I try to kind of apply or kind of develop that concept, that things about time and what it looked like. And even in the cover, you're seeing like these like images in the shape. It's showing like all the media-based work is on the kind of showing on the screen. So that's the design concept, but the intention or the desire that to flatten out 2 different languages in completely democratic or equal hierarchy, it's always the pursuit. Another book, the same in China, so a Norwegian performance group has this show in Gladstone Museum. Again, you have all this design concept, and with like flip book on the side, on the page of a book. So when you flip through the book, you see like a little kind of model animations throughout the book, but like the 2 languages being treated the same way. So even like using a very kind of expressive weird typeface for English, we're trying to find something like nobody will ever actually use for Chinese that would like usually use a laundromat. So that's like an earlier project is trying to kind of capture or kind of apply what I learned or what I'm interested in Western design to this kind of bilingual project and the publication in actually mainland China. Then this is a kind of pivotal moment for me that M+ came. So M+ is a museum in Hong Kong due to open in 2020 or 2021. And then this is the exhibition before they even have a museum. They still don't have a museum yet, but you'll see they have a site and the things are going right now. So at that time, the museum are not only trying to build the museum, but also trying to build the audiences, because in Asia, in Hong Kong, in China, going to museum is slightly different meanings and slightly different activities compared to the United States or Europe. So this exhibition it's called Building M Plus. It's showing the new building, which is designed by Heron de Meuron, and also showcase their architecture collections. So they're building up similar thing to MoMA, or they have like design architecture collection aside from contemporary art. So a Swiss architect designing a building in Hong Kong. So immediate kind of and intuitively, I think about the Swiss typography, and then and how do I apply Swiss typography, this kind of ragging system to Chinese typography, or to a different languages, and also like Wolfgang Weigand, when you see on the left, a new wave Swiss type designer, graphic designer, that kind of revolutionized the kind of more classical Josef Müller-Brockmann's style, that to like this kind of more expressive silk screen overlay, kind of more visually driven style. And so kind of combine those things into this context, and so the idea, like we developed this kind of posters or key visual for the exhibition. And then so like you will see the buildings are being treated in the way that in kind of Wolfgang Weigand way, the silk screen way, because there wasn't a building, these are just rendering, there's no need for us to see the real photos. So it turns into an exhibition. Exhibition become a monotone, almost like gray or black and white kind of presentation, but the same typography apply, and then you know, a lot of graphic treatment to be put in the exhibition. A lot of people came to the exhibition. The curatorial statement was treated as a kind of 4 high, 8 feet tall wall with all this postcard insert into it, and so now you have 2 languages and images. And so that's turned into the exhibition catalog. So instead of making a book, we make a folder with all these cards in it, and you can collect them yourself if you go through the exhibition, or like you just kind of get the full set of it. Here is something interesting too. When you say building M plus, or in Chinese we say 构建 M plus, which is also building too, you are sharing the same character M plus, so you don't have to say M plus twice. So like even like things that type being set on the corner, if you start to look at graphic design at 39, so like, you know, like this being treated on the corner is quite common or trendy way nowadays, but I think it's the idea here is that like it's a perfect framework that like, because even there is total of 5 words, but I only need 4 plays because I don't need to say M plus twice. So after this, it's a good show, quite successful. Then other project comes, M plus screening. It's a screening series showing films over the weekend. So we kind of designed this kind of vertical type that kind of resembled the form of a film strip. And then, you know, like it turns into posters, other things, and then, you know, promotional materials, and even like a small kind of handout that been made on every series. So it's an ongoing series. That was 2016, I believe, and so today they're still using this system. If you Google image this, is like showing all the new ones. Something gets really long, and I see a comma somewhere. The system's still there, and then it can be applied, and I'm glad to see 2 languages still in the same hierarchy. Nothing gets bigger and smaller, but that's what we do in between this. And then this comes 2017, 2 consecutive exhibitions I designed in Hong Kong for M+. So at this time, comparing to the first exhibition, Building M+, that actually shown in the shopping mall. So it was like, it's Asian context. It's found this huge space, 5,000 square feet space, but it's in the shopping mall. But then now they built a pavilion that they can show work. So before the museum opened, I think they planned 16, 24 shows. So I designed the 5th and then the 6th, I will see. So this is an exhibition called Canton Express. So it's reimagined the show that Cohan curated in 2003 in Venice Biennial, kind of bring all these Chinese artists that now famous, but it was unknown back then to the international stage. And so the whole exhibition is basically taking that exact structure and re-put it in this pavilion. So what is the challenge of the project is at that time, the museum has grown into a full institution, so they hire a branding firm, several of them, to develop this guideline that if you're not a designer, you probably haven't seen this. So usually someone you don't know somewhere and make all these rules. It's like, that's where the type size should be, the font size should be, that's what the distance should be, this is where the logo should be, and this is only the image you can use. And usually you'll have a lot of like, don't do this kind of chapters. And so like, this is very kind of evolving kind of guideline, and then it's kind of clearly define what everything should look like. And then I think to me, the biggest challenge is first of all, the artwork you have to use in the background. What if, like, sometimes when we, especially in contemporary art context, sometimes you don't get a really good images, if it's video art, if it's pixelated, if it's people's drawing. So that's like it's a little bit, to me, could be a difficult point to make that look good if you have a background image you use as a background in that size. And also the headline, you can see the SIG collection here that's been defined can only occupy that corner because the system works in the way that, and plus the stickers kind of divided any given canvas into two, and so one side is the logo and one side is the title. So this is what we came up with, and then you can see the struggle here, and I made it through. So the logo type for Canton Express, that kind of shows it's almost like a train or a rail that actually breaking the rule through all rounds of negotiation, sort of kind of convince the museum that, like, if we're growing the museum, this is the time we're testing the limits of the guideline. So things are going off the rail, not to mention the graphic in the background, because this was, as I mentioned, this is a reimagining of an exhibition from 2003, so all the images they have is pretty low res from the back then. So, it turned into all these different things. It's an exhibition catalog is right here. Turned into this 14 feet banner on the pavilion. This construction site turned into this water barrier, which is quite scary because it's by the water, by the sea, and that's where the new building will be. So one of the big deliverables of what we say, or the big part we design is these guys. So go to the exhibition, the title wall, that's the exteriors, logo type there, and the other kind of perspective looking at the exhibition. And then this is like a mind map for the development of the museum. And so we created this mind map through the original curator Cohan's sketches. And so that's what is given to us. So this is Cohan's notebook, basically. And so with all this kind of ideas, and then we're quite interesting and touch upon all different perspective. But I told the museum or the curators that I'm not able to design based on this. Can't even read the text. So this brilliant assistant curator, Isabella Tam, at that time. So she made this version for me. So basically translated from this to a more kind of sober, diagrammatic sketches, and also everything will be translated into either English or Chinese. So taking from that, so we kind of make our graphic translation, and so make it more kind of fun and Google lines and a different shape that represent different time, a different either it's art world, or it's political, or it's just like in general fact. So like it does all these different things in terms of the translation and negotiation. Following by this another exhibition, I curated my good friend Nasima. So it's an ink art show. So it's a major museum in China, so they do have this position for ink art curators. And so this is kind of showcase the collections they have so far. Even the museum is still being built, they already deliberately collect a wide range of ink art show. I'm proud of my progress here. So because I made this sticker into a blurry light, and that kind of responding to the title of the weight of lightness, and also not only going across the lines actually become more freeform. And also another way to another kind of experiment or another exercise is trying to use different artwork for different applications. So on the poster you see it's an artwork, and the other the 14 feet banner is another piece, and then in the glass door is something else. But as long as you have this system exist, people will be able to identify it's the same exhibition. The same typography applied to the exhibition space. It's a beautiful show. It's a really light and bright, and then it's really make the ink art cool again. So the same thing about the catalog, and also just so you know, in the guideline they also define all the interior page of the catalog. So you cannot do like a image in the middle of the gutter, or you cannot go across things like that. And that was kind of like being I'm trying to kind of push that limit, or kind of I wouldn't say challenge, kind of interpreted it from those guidelines to different places. So a water barrel. So a good moment happened. My parents will be able to come to Hong Kong to see the thing. It's a very delightful moment. So that was 2017, and then things going back. In the beginning, those 3 books, we got the job, we got the project through the curators. They're based here, and they got commissioned to create a show in China. Hong Kong is also, the first exhibition came through reputation of the studio, I guess, and then people like someone here know Chinese. But after the first show, it started to become friends with the curator there and know the people there, and so they kind of like just kind of being recommended word of mouth. It's like, my friends say you're great, and it's like, I guess I go out with you, and that kind of follow up with all these exhibitions. And then another very different case that the work we did for David Zwirner. So it has been talking about this kind of the new building, the art building in Hong Kong that will house all the major galleries in one single building, and all the elevator is glass, and then you can see the work even just going through artwork even just going through the floors. And so it actually happens. And so Edge Queen being built, I think it's 2017 to late 2016. So the David Zwirner Gallery in New York approached us, and then in a similar mindset, and seeing our work in Hong Kong, and saying we're gonna launch our brand in Hong Kong, and we want someone who knows both languages to help us to kind of design our kind of from like little stationery to invoice to like advertising and stuff. And so what we did for them is something very invisible. I would say like everything kind of looked the same as what they had before, but we start with recommending a kind of matching Chinese typeface with their existing corporate identity, corporate typeface. So has a different weight. If I have a different weight of avenir, what they're using, this kind of geometric sans serif, we just have 2 different weight of Chinese for that. We add a new typeface to the system with the power of knowing Chinese. So a new serif font being proposed to add to the system for different purposes. So now you're gonna feel a little bit, you're like in the eye doctor. So it's all look the same, but we spend a lot of time on this address block thing. So the new address block for David Zwirner Hong Kong has traditional Chinese and English, and this is how you should construct it. But let's break this down into a way that this is for the Hong Kong audiences. This is for the Chinese audience from mainland China who come to Hong Kong. So we're using simplified Chinese for sure, but we also translate David Zwirner into Chinese. So this says 左那画廊 means like David Zwirner galleries. So like if you are speaking to English-speaking audiences who live in Hong Kong, what you should do is not remove the Chinese, but simply swap the sequence of English and Chinese, because people who actually decided to go to Hong Kong or live in Hong Kong like to see things in Chinese, even if they don't read it. So we're kind of like recommending all this kind of design configuration or like kind of branding elements through the nuances of the languages instead of visual forms. Press release, we can do that. I like we show them on the people's screen. That's that's your press release will show on the people's screen. If you send this over, this is what you scroll. You have this nicely set Chinese typeface, Chinese typography, and comparing to other galleries, all kind of look a little bit so this is a breaking down diagram of this. Like again, I don't want to sound like broken record, but like different configurations just for different people, even they are all in the same place. Stationery, invites, print ads, and then go with the book series. So this is a book series we've been working on since then until today. So this is an example that, so the book series is called Spotlight. Every book is dedicated to one artist for a series of work. This is for Wolfgang Tillman. The design is feature this book jacket, which is some way, it's my way of to kind of avoid the censorship. So if you have something that is nudity or Jesus Christ or anything that was not going to pass the censorship, we can hide it behind the jacket. But if you open it up, you will see something. But of course, Wolfgang Tillman doesn't seem to be into the idea. It shows nothing. But like that's the whole point. Or like it can be interpreted as a self-censor. Like if you are conveyed to that system, if you know the political situation nowadays in Hong Kong versus China. So the interior page is quite simple. Looks like any catalog you have. But we do have 6 books now. We're designing the 7th one. Thomas Ruff just right now. So this different kind of book jacket, kind of a jacket of the book, sort of like make some sort of Easter egg through the design. We're also designing the website coming this fall. The Zwirner Books website with a good e-commerce functions. You know what I mean? But after all this exercise and all these projects, we actually got hired back, or kind of David Zwirner actually want us to continue the work, actually develop the entire system for the whole brand. So this is a brand guideline we ended up reverse engineer developed for 3 new locations in London and Hong Kong, and potentially much to come. So define. So now we're doing some guideline too. So other things, like from like invites, add to like stickers for the artwork. So yeah, that's a slightly different case compared to that the three books and then M+. So like I'm mostly based in New York, but got hired by a New York clients to speak to an audiences that they are not familiar with, but it's a place I actually came from. So I'm gonna quickly cycle through this because this is a long project. This is this book, One Hand Clapping, for Guggenheim Museum. So it's a whole foundation. It's a series of exhibitions sponsored by whole foundation. So that it's basically it's a contemporary Chinese art show. So it's commissioned a few artists from China or Taiwan or Hong Kong, kind of make work specifically for the exhibition. So this exhibition, the third one in the series, called One Hand Clapping. So it's basically trying to probe the idea that what is the future and what is the current and what is utopia, and the concept between something look foreign might seems like future. Because you don't understand that, or like, but with some economical system as big as China that doing a completely different, running a completely different path or trajectory on the side, that might already be the future. So Samson Yang's work, Cao Fei's work, Lin drop a basketball with a drone from the roof of Rotunda, and then made a VR film, which is all very interesting. And then we would ask to design this book, and then the curator gave us the same keywords, as she gave to the artist. And so like, I read this and I know the whole idea, but it feels like it's too much for me to take, so I'm gonna make this simple. I'm just gonna make a book for the future. So that's the first thing that I'm thinking. So like, what is a book for the future? You know, all this kind of like the genealogy of the progression of a book making and suggesting who should be reading them. But again, responding to the idea that what is the future, and at that time, there's several kind of Hollywood blockbuster movie in the theater. So this is the Ghost in the Shell. It's all about future. This is Blade Runner. The future actually looks like Tokyo. So like going back to Star Wars, and then Kubrick, Space Odyssey, or even to like more Asian version like Wong Kar-wai. And so all this future, those movies trying to portray what the future is. It's all look a little bit like the past. It looks something like old mixed in the new, or like in the Star Wars. You can argue Star Wars is not really in the future. We don't know, but like like at least most of them trying everything you think about futurism, or what you project in the image of the future, is always look at something look like in the old or in the past. So at every moment we have something we think about what the future should look like in the 80s, maybe in the 90s, and late 90s. All this evidence made by the pixels, and so like all this type design that kind of fighting with the pixel to make font. There's this thing called meta font by this MIT professor called Dana. So you're not drawing the font, but you just put in all these numbers. It will make this font for you. And then Dexter Sinister design practice use this font a lot. Of course, there's a Chinese meta font too. Two Harvard students, I think, at 80s, trying to come up with this system to use the values of the numbers to define the stroke, and you can make all these fonts without actually drawing them. Things also change, like in the older days you'll see like things on the screen looks too bold, and now if you're an iPhone, you have an iPad, if all this kind of Huawei like devices, you feels like the text on the phone is actually getting too thin. And that's the technology has changed, and kind of somewhat changed the graphic design or tech design too. Last kind of one more blockbuster is like the language of Alien. It's actually look like Chinese calligraphy. So like I got it. So a look of the future. It's a residual of everything from the past. So you have this pixel font, you have this classic serif font, you have this kind of jagged sans serif look like meta font, which people think that's gonna be a future, and in Chinese and English, and all different languages kind of mix up with this kind of typographic system made up as a headline. And then this is what the text look like. The captions, we're kind of pairing a pixel font with Garamond, a classic 19th century serif. There's poems in the book, so we set it in the Chinese way, classical Chinese way, vertical. So the pages goes on, and then these are the pages for the poem. Each artist get their own section to put whatever they like. The basketball, Lin is showing his sketches, some renderings and things and all that. Samsung showing his imaginary instrument that can be only made in computer, so it can make the sound that non-physical instrument could actually make. So we made all these pages, and we have this kind of buzzy cover. So it's printed on this holographic paper, and then kind of you look at different angle, it shines differently. So the production manager actually showing us this video, which you cannot see. It's like it doesn't feel like a future. It feels like in a very kind of old-fashioned 19th century factory that these kind of the vessel or the package of future has been made. So two more. I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go over time. So if you guys need to leave or take a nap, feel free. Two more projects. So those are the languages, but then how about start to thinking about create a fictional languages? So this is a project we did with Jesper Yes, a Danish artist. He made this kind of beautiful film represented in Venice Biennial at the Danish Pavilion. And so it's funny how it's a film shot in China in this new built town, has this replica Eiffel Towers in it, and then with all this kind of like European style apartment. And then so he commissioned all this kind of African, French African actors kind of just wandering around in that town and just all the things. And whatever they do, this Eiffel Tower is kind of in the background. And so the artist and the Danish pavilion kind of approached us to say, can you guys make a communication campaign for this? So like help us to kind of tell people like this how cool this film is and how proud our pavilion is. And so we're like, well, what can we do? A graphic designer, we're gonna make posters. We're gonna make poster campaign. While your film is on in Venice, we're gonna post it out every part of the world in a different city. But what do we put in the posters? So a little bit Chinese lesson now, sorry, but like it's Eiffel Tower. So it's in Chinese it's called Eiffel Theater. Also, Eiffel is actually apple. I like apple. I try to phonetically translate it. What Eiffel Tower is. So we take that first character I, use that as a starting point, and we start to think about, and this is kind of like we're just kind of daydreaming, but it starts to look like an upside down Eiffel Tower in its form, and then but actually someone else. I think Jonathan is here, a designer who worked on this project. Someone else is just like, that they come up with that kind of visual similarity. They found that visual similarity, but I was like, no, I is actually a grass. It's a grass in China that is a lucky grass, called aicao. It's a special grass, so I just insist put that there. But then, so this is the original of the form, but then, like I said, we want to kind of create a new language. So we upside down, we turn the character upside down, which means we turn the Eiffel Tower back to what it should look like, and we create this kind of fictional character, which is an upside down character of I, and then we develop 6 different versions of them in a kind of different graphic representation. And then this is a poster. And so we are, while posting this poster in 5 cities around the world during the time the film was showing in Venice. And so this is in New York, and each city is supposed to only show one poster, but sometimes you can't really control this kind of thing. But in New York, and that's a better way to do it. So people are looking at the strange characters in Copenhagen. This man doesn't seem to be pleased with that characters. In Hong Kong, funny how they put it under the giant club. So each city, as you can probably see now, even I'm going so quick on my slides, each city has a little bit different kind of nuances. So Hong Kong is gold, of course. If any city is gold, it's Hong Kong. And this is in Paris. Also, they didn't follow the rule, they post everything. And then this is in Shanghai. And I think this one is really interesting to me. Tell me a fact that like this one, the poster, they actually corrected. It's like, well, this character should be this way. I didn't know that. That's the I. So yeah, that's a really kind of one of my favorite projects. And it's kind of trying to create a new language based on existing language by copy the meanings. The last project I will show is this thing called Shanghai project, just like one of the a very mixed feeling about this project. So Himalaya Museum in Shanghai had this ambitious idea. They wanted started an art fair or biennial or art event that not only include visual artists, but also all kinds of people, scientists, poets, hackers, they keep saying hackers, chefs, all kinds of people who work in art or apply art to contribute or to be included into this biennial or this exhibition. So Hans Ulrich Oberst, international renowned curator, was the artistic director, and Yang Wen-li at that time, the founder of Guangzhou Biennial, was the co-artistic director. So such an ambitious project, I think they need ambitious identity. So yeah, they hire us, they want us to commission us to design identity system for the biennial and also for the exhibition graphic, websites and everything. So it started with something that I wanted to make identity that it's not being read, but it's being said and it's being pronounced. So starting with this idea that Shanghai project in Chinese is called Shanghai, Shangmu, and then each character could be represented by an icon or by an image. And then, but in Chinese, if you speak Chinese or your friends speak Chinese, you know, like when you say a word, say Shang, it could means maybe 12 or to 14 different things, and you could be similar, could be elephant, could be photos, could be it all pronounced Shang. or maybe sometimes Shang, sometimes it depends on if you're American learning Chinese, you probably spell it that way. So this in a very distinctive character in Chinese language that is called similar sounding characters. So it's different word, different character, has different meanings, but it sounds the same. So this is the logo we designed for them. So it basically is a random stuff together. But in Chinese, if you speak Chinese, you can help me. So you can spell Shanghai, Shang, and Mu. So Mu is like the current. And then you can have a different kind of representation with the same thing. So you can have all different kind of baby, you can have all different kind of elephants. Every time you look different, but you can pronounce this. And then if you are imagining if an international visitor coming to the show and, hey, what is this weird thing is, and then a citizen in Shanghai could help you that, let me give you the Chinese lesson, and it's called Shanghai Shangmu. So it goes on and on. So it can be Shang, which is close, sounds like Shang, but it's not really Shang. Hai could be a bone or a skeleton. Shang is a photo, it's a wood. Hai is high, or like a Mu is like a shepherd. So these images can be replaced, it could be anything, and even just for the skeleton, it could be Dinghurst, it could be 19th century drawing of a skeleton, or it could be your doodle of a skeleton. So this identity resembles based on the pronunciation instead of any kind of reading or written languages. So once we establish this system, everything is this 4 random stuff. Then we can push it further. So it could be anything. So it could be Tom and Jerry, it could be Le Corbusier, it could be a Kubrick. It can be used for a specific purpose. If it's VIP event, if it's press event, you have all those things together, you know what it means. And it doesn't pronounce Shanghai project, Shanghai Shangmu anymore, but it does has that kind of visual distinction that you recognize it. So there's a logo type, but we barely use it. So that's the sketches. Of course, there's a lot of things we cannot do in China. So like Jesus had to go, the monk can be there. All this kind of negotiation, but it works. You can create this idea on and on. You can get a Shang and you can get a Mu, and then you can all be together as a 4-person game. So made it real. We were interviewed by the publications. The tote bag has all different things. Rip off with Ukiyo-e stuff. The opening, Hans was there, Yoni was there. I don't know why you guys probably curious why 2116 is. This is something was added after we designed identity, and then also after we designed identity, they changed the title of the show. So it's not Shanghai project anymore. It actually becomes Shanghai Seed. So they were like, why can't you just apply this idea to this new name? Well, we can or we cannot, but that's what it turned out. Su Tsujimoto designed the pavilion in front of the museum. Or the show, and then they have the second edition. They still use those things. Not sure what this is already been going, but that's what happened. So all this design project, and the last kind of 5 minutes, some sort of conclusion or some sort of question I have, and some sort of kind of ideas or research I'm trying to do. And then if any of you who knows the things I'm going to show now, help me, because I really would like to get into some of these. Something that really I like to think about is my favorite novel, Haruki Murakami, The Hot Boy Wonderland and the End of the World. That's about these 2 worlds, not one person live in the modern Tokyo, and then a part of him or the other part of him live in a town that has a wall and the unicorns. So like one day he's gonna die from one word just because the junction in his mind or in his brain start to dissolve and being connected to a different world. So you're not really dying, you just live in a different world. And then so sometimes I have that kind of moment that like at what time my one world will override the other world, but also like we all being more used to 2 or multiple worlds nowadays. We see different screen at the same time. We flip through things. Is that still gonna happen? Is that something to be scared about? things I really like to know more is about symbols and icons, iconographics. So the the DOT standards about these kind of signs or these icons, and to like again I'm using the Chinese version of this, or this icon looks familiar but not quite like your iPhone. So icon seems to be a universal language, at least most people think. So like I like this example that James T. Hong contributed this kind of a little research project in publication for Taipei Biennial in 2012. It's called Taiwan WMD. It's like a weapon for mass destruction. So it's like Taiwan has known we have nuclear weapons in order to fight a different part of China, but at a certain point we kind of turn into one different purposes. So these three different icons first be presented in this kind of little research little article, and then they've been used to kind of key all this kind of historical milestone moments during the history of Taiwan, that the progression or the movement or the change or the events about a nuclear weapon or electronic factories or know that. So the icon works and it shows it's dangerous or it's vital or it's actually good for you, produce energies. It's the same icon for the English and Chinese version, and it works the same way, effectively in the Chinese character too, in the Chinese version too. But what I'm thinking, like, how do we design the best icon nowadays in today's world? And it is not only a design problem, but it could be almost like a sociological or geopolitical problem, because it depends on how people look at it, because people have a different knowledge now. When the time they look at that DOT standard, that umbrella means like lost and found, but it's a different thing. So this is kind of like a beginning of the kind of iconography or ideogram design. It's called isotype. This Austrian philosopher, sociologist Otto Nora designed a system trying to like kind of do an infographic or diagram of like population or demographic in certain country, and it's based on the system that like this is 5 different type of men, and then you have to make them different enough in order to kind of assign them to be recognizable, and which is a really great translation of the feature of certain races, certain people from some cultural background. But we all know this is wrong today. We cannot do this anymore. So like, but what do we do? I encountered this challenge when we were working on a signage project for a major museum. We don't know how to do icons as a studio, so we kind of proposed like all the signs in the museum should just be typography. So instead of a hanger, it just say checkroom or code check. And then so immediately the museum come back with the very relevant feedback that with the increasing global audiences that visit the museum, what if they don't read English? We should have icons. But we're not sure about these hanger icons for code check, because it's kind of strange. It's not really the code, and also it's related to, we have this negative meaning about the abortion. We started to design all these new icons for the global audiences. And then we went through backpack codes and all that rounds of discussion, and we actually set as a hanger. Eventually, if we go to this museum, it's open in a few months, and it's a hanger, because we couldn't find the right icon that doesn't have that kind of different connotation behind it. But also, I always wonder that like, is the global audience really going to see the hanger as abortion, to associate the hanger sign to the abortion, or the hanger just means hanger to them, or it's just very kind of to a very specific culture, specific area. So if the graphic or icons doesn't work, this kind of reduced visual form is not enough to translate for us in today's world. How about the images? And so we think about the photos. I show this to some of you actually. Now it's hard to communicate. It means like you have too much bubble tea and make you fat. So like, and that's like what the image can tell more than the reduced form graphic. And then I always go back to this kind of inspiration, Thibaut Kalman, this kind of graphic designer, creative director in the 80s. So he has his own studio at MNCO, but he also is the editor of Colors magazine, which was sponsored by Benetton, Italian fashion brand. So his kind of very Thibaut trick is kind of putting two things together. They are both prints, but you know they are different prints. So like, do we need that word prints there? Probably we don't, but of course Thibaut know that. My favorite issue of Colors is number 13, which is also the last issue. Thibaut was an editor and creative director, and so it starts with a caution, says, warning, this magazine contains no words. Start here from cover. So this magazine, the 13th issue, has no articles, no writings, purely images. And so very Thibaut's like starting with the Earth and the globe, and then the aerial view and that. There's all these different kind of houses. There's all these kind of noses. You know, like there's people smoking. There's people kissing. So all this kind of nuances and the images and being represented in a very kind of blunt way, and kind of make you think as a viewer of what the message is actually behind here, and it's not translated through language or any written form. So the back cover ends. This is the back cover ends with the image. I'm still contemplating, thinking about what this actually means, because the image on the bottom says a lot of different things for someone from Taiwan. At the top, I don't know what that is. It's a kind of aerial view of a city or some sort. So like I'm still thinking about what the image, the world that is kind of occupied by all the images instead of typography or graphic nowadays. What does the image translate? How do we translate images? How do we look at image? How do we insert images? The globe on your phone screen, and what does that mean? Last thing, I wanted to do more research, and some of you can help me. Really want to know this kind of historic factor about simplification of Chinese character. It's difficult to find here, but I like the Western point of view of this. So this is the an article written in New York Times in 1956, right after the first rollout of the simplification from the Chinese government, and it's really beautifully portray what the system is, and with examples and then graphic. And these things called 新文化 拉丁化文运动. It's like they're trying to romanize the Chinese character. So instead of writing this complicated ideogram, they're using Roman character to like pinyin to spell out the Chinese words. So with the aid of illustration here, you know, Tizi is man. Man is not man, it's actually door. But they're trying to spell out phonetically the Chinese character to be right, so it to be a new kind of a way of the new languages. And this was done in Russia, so I need to talk to. I think it's about the class. So like the workers, obviously they don't have time to learn and memorize and remember all these complex Chinese characters, but they know how to speak. And so what if we make a language to be like the way you're speaking? So this is one page. So they made all these textbooks for this kind of new movement or new script, as I call it, as a translation. And then even I speak Chinese, this is quite shocking because you barely understand what this is. And so it basically trying to kind of spell it out what that is. And then eventually, if this is actually came to, and then the whole movement, the whole revolution kind of didn't last that long. And I wonder why, and it's difficult for me to get materials from New York aside from internet. So something that like I really wish I can do a little bit more research on this kind of historical part, and also from my background and that from that side of China, these kind of information or knowledge is being banned from our education, or we're not allowed to talk about it. I want to end this on this slide. I don't know what I can tell you, and I've been trying to research the things too. It's called Emperor's Giraffe. So the first painting in 15th century, that apparently there was a giraffe being sent by the king of Bengal to a Chinese emperor, and so there's this painting that hung now in Philadelphia Museum of Art with this messenger, so this person attending the giraffe. And then through the internet, you can find all this different version of it, and I think some of them were like a different version of that story. That giraffe is being sent to a French king. It's interesting visually. why there's only one giraffe? How did they get there? Well, I guess I explained that, the giraffe is in the boat. So like, yeah, again, like I would like to know more about this in terms of it's a kind of embedded colonial meanings and like what does why is a giraffe and what the animal as a media, I guess, and what language is being spoken and if there's giraffes speak to each other. So that's my talk today. I know there's a lot of things, and I kind of went over the time a little bit. So thank you. Questions, comments, feedback?
So you went over, by the way, thank you. It was very beautiful and pretty community here. You went over different types of works that you did, and you highlighted some were maybe making for a museum, some for a book. Which one like resonates with you the most? Which one are you the most proud of, and why?
That's a great question. Thank you. I think my answer, if I may indulge myself a little bit today, lesser to answer this question from a designer perspective, but more from an artist perspective. I think I enjoyed the most would be the work that kind of reflect myself at that time. So the example is like the first 3 books. It's like I was struggling at first immigrant to New York and went through the school, and all I wanted to do is prove I actually speak English. And so that's what the intention behind the design, that I wanted to put 2 languages equal instead of like make the Chinese bigger than the English. So that was quite intriguing for me at that time. I mean, subconsciously or subliminally in a way. Like I wasn't really conscious about that, but looking at today, I see that struggle. I can see that struggle in myself. I don't have a favorite work. Going back to my designer view, so designer kind of we take what has been given and we translate that into certain form and depends on how you worked out. Most of the time we failed, sometimes we success. Yeah, I think it's like each work here, and that's why I'm trying to kind of lump in so many slides here because it shows like a trajectory or a little bit of body of work that's from decades. Yeah, every kid's like it's cute. I love all my kids.
Thank you.
I have a question. So in your M+ logo, on the plus sign you have like a dash going through it, or a slice going through it. Why was that?
Good question. We were just discussing this today. Let me go to that slide. I think that's coming from, that's a kind of visual resemblance from the West Kowloon logo. If you have time to look at West Kowloon logo, so they hire an international branding firm to design a West Kowloon logo, and then based on that they developed the M+ logo because it's part of the West Kowloon Cultural District. And so in West Kowloon they have this kind of vertical cut on the letter, the T, lowercase t, and I think they applied that to the logo of M+. And also I think it's because, which one is a better view? Maybe my parents. Okay, so I think this shape is the shape of the building. So it's the building of Maison de Morale. But I did not design this logo. This logo has been given to me as the blank guideline they already have. But it's interesting that all these little characters. Oh yeah, here's the West Kowloon logo. So I think the idea is make the HK jump out. So they intentionally cut that line to make it like HK. So it's West Kowloon HK in there. Smart idea. Okay, let's move away. I didn't get their consent, so like I need to show you.
Chris, do you prefer like working with English and Chinese characters? Do you prefer one for each other, or are they the same for you when you work?
That's a very good question. I prefer working in English, honestly, because Chinese has. I think that's what I'm trying to cover here. So there's so many nuances and embedded meaning to me. So I feel like sometimes I couldn't really. Sometimes I read the essays with a design typesetting that got kind of slightly annoying. So like that's one part of a very personal perspective. But I think the question, Jonathan, is more. I like to design both languages together. I think to me it's the most delightful moment to have the client that actually ask for bilingual, trilingual. So for today's purpose, we're only showing Chinese and English, but we also, the studio works also design, we have many projects in Europe and the Middle East, so we design all different kind of languages together. So yeah, I think the answer is both together.
Two questions. Number one, you seem to know a lot of local knowledge and also conceptually and also research that you have done. Do you do focus group for your final product?
Mm-hmm.
Do you test what you have somehow designed or created? And number two is when you work with artists such as for catalog, or a group show, is there some type of struggle with the artists in terms of how your design go along with their actual work they're presenting, and are there moments that you need to argue for your vision, and how did that happen?
Great question. Thank you, Vincent. Yes, starting from the second question, with artists, yes, that usually happen. The good thing is, tied back to the first question, I'm local, so most of the artists are actually my friends instead of the older ones. So they found a more kind of like we call champagne, like a more respectful people from the earlier days. Yes, but it's always a negotiation with them. But I think most artists has been more respectful compared to other position of the working group that working on a book. So not really. And also I think one of our kind of methodology of designing, especially like mainly work in the art and cultural field, that we're trying to come up with a design that actually not doing too much of kind of intrusion, or like try to show the artwork as artwork is. I mean, like the Guggenheim, the one hand carving might be a little show off, but like I'm trying to prove my point. So that it's really difficult to make. That's like total of like 8 different types to set. So that's that. So yes, the answer is yes. Focus group, great question. We've been asked a lot to do that in mostly in the States. I actually have never done one of this for the project I show, and that will be interesting to see what people think in the focus group setup, so people can actually speak up what they really think instead of getting into the quantified data sets like people yay or nay or like or dislike. One kind of privilege to work in the art and cultural field, it's just like sometimes it doesn't kind of it's more kind of, you know, the artist, the curators, the designer can make the decision. It's not really it doesn't have to be vetted by that mass kind of group. That's what I understand what focus group usually do. If I do design a logo for PNG in China, I might have to go through that process. Yeah.
So I wonder, let's say if I'm very drawn to the projects about the hierarchy between two languages, and I wonder, let's say if I have a constraint for you and you cannot use the font size to show the hierarchy, how would the other way for you to show that?
So I cannot make them the same size.
Yeah.
That's a very strange brief.
Well, I want to see what's the alternative. You know?
I mean, yeah, I mean, like that's a really great question, and I don't know. I can design on the fly, but you know, like basic design principles. You know, positions, colors, you know, frequencies. You know, I made the Chinese type, you know, 10% of size of English, but you repeat 25 times. So like it is some way to get around it if I really get a brief like this. But I guess the reason is, yeah, I think it's a very interesting challenge. It's like why?
No, it's just no. I think the hierarchy is such like a deep, like much deeper thing.
Yeah.
I feel like there could be other ways
I see.
you can play around with that.
It's somewhat
Just like simply
yeah.
on this scale and size.
It's somewhat like a simplification of hierarchy. That hierarchy doesn't mean it's like we're all the same size
Yeah.
and then we're all the same. I got it. Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. Maybe use bolder font, even they are different size or something. Like there's some. I think there's something could be done formally and something can be done structurally. And then nowadays we don't really like to talk about form again. Like like in terms of design, it's your artist. Like it's a form giving, but like contemporary art not really giving that. And to us, there's a structure, there's stories. And so if we have the structure of the book, the story is the content, and the story can be said in a very different way. So maybe from today, maybe that's how I answer you. So maybe today I don't really think a flat hierarchy is that important in terms of presentation. Like it could be same hierarchy structurally, but not same hierarchy visually.